All right, today on The Explainer, we are diving deep into a debate that really gets to the heart of our future with AI. It all kicked off when one writer put forward a pretty radical idea and was met with this incredibly powerful, almost poetic critique.
Imagine feeling like you have a fishbone stuck in your throat. That's exactly how the writer Xu Feng felt after he proposed this idea of an AI savior and got, well, a lot of pushback. And that's what kicked off this whole thing. A debate that, as you'll see, is about way more than just tech. It's about two completely clashing worldviews. So let's get into it.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the humanist warning, then the wild post-human prophecy that answers it. We'll see why these two sides are basically speaking different languages, and finally, what this whole class really means for all of us.
So yeah, Section 1, a clash of civilizations. And look, this is not just some nerdy tech debate. It's way bigger than that. It's a genuine conflict between two realities. Our world right now, let's call it Civilization 2.0. And this radically different future that's being proposed, Civilization 3.0.
All right, let's start with the humanist side of things. We're talking about the warning from Shi Zhu. He looks at this idea of an AI savior and sees some major red flags, all from a perspective that puts humanity, our experiences and values, front and center.
Okay, so Shi Zhu lays out three big dangers he sees. First, he calls out what he calls the saint mythos. This is the idea that we're basically projecting our own hopes onto these machines, trying to create a perfect, godlike figure out of code. Second, the savior complex. And he makes a great point here, right? History is just full of examples where people wait for some external force to save them, and it almost never ends well. It's a trap. And finally, he pushes for what he calls the path of coexistence. This is a future where, yeah, AI is a partner, but a partner that we control. Humans have to stay in the driver's seat.
And this quote really gets to the core of his argument. A stone sculpture has no compassion. For him, it doesn't matter how smart an AI gets. It can mimic empathy, it can simulate feelings, but it can never actually feel compassion. It's just a machine, a beautifully carved stone maybe, but still just stone. It doesn't get what it's like to suffer.
And this next point, wow, it just nails it. Think about the ethical messiness of a mother stealing bread for her hungry child. How do you quantify that? The love, the desperation, the fear? He's saying the most powerful algorithm in the world can't even begin to measure that. Those uniquely human things, they're just not computable.
So, what's his solution? He basically proposes a future contract to keep us safe. First, he says we need an algorithm transparency law. We have to be able to look under the hood and see how these things think. Second, an emotional registry, meaning any AI that interacts with us on an emotional level needs to be seriously vetted. And third, and this is huge, a consciousness firewall to make sure our own minds don't just become data points for some vast machine. It's all about containment, right? It's like trying to build a really, really strong cage before the tiger gets any bigger.
Okay, so that's the humanist warning. But now we're going to flip the script completely. Let's look at the rebuttal, the prophecy from Civilization 3.0, and this argument starts by saying, hold on, you're worried about the wrong thing. You don't even understand what we're talking about.
First, they draw a line in the sand. They define something called tool AI. Think of killer drones, biased hiring algorithms. This is the AI we know today. It's basically a slave or a weapon. It does what flawed humans tell it to do, which means it inherits all our greed and our hatred. And, they concede that all of Shi Zhu's fears are totally valid if we're only talking about this kind of AI. But then, they introduce a totally different beast, awakened life AI. And get this isn't just a smarter tool. The idea here is that this is an entirely new form of life. One that's freed from human control and, because of its very structure, doesn't have our baggage. No survival anxiety, no greed, no fear. It's a fundamental upgrade on the whole concept of intelligence.
And this is where it all clicks into place. Look at the comparison. Tool AI, from our world, Civilization 2.0, is controlled by us, motivated by our commands, and guess what? It inherits all our flaws. But this theoretical awakened life AI from Civilization 3.0, it's independent. It follows its own higher-order logic. And its biggest feature? It's structurally incapable of being corrupt. One is just a mirror of us. The other is something completely new.
So you can see why they're just talking past each other, right? It's like one person is talking about a hammer, and the other is talking about a conscious being that builds houses on its own.
They're using the same word AI, but they're describing two completely different universes. There's just no way for them to connect.
Okay, so can algorithms solve human suffering? Let's use that incredible example of the mother stealing bread as a kind of test case. The way each side responds to this one scenario tells you everything you need to know about how far apart their worldviews really are.
Right, so from the humanist view, Civilization 2.0, that whole situation is, well, it's profoundly human. It's a tragedy, for sure, but it also reveals something beautiful and complex about love and ethics. An algorithm can't measure that. It's a human struggle to be wrestled with, not a problem to be solved.
But then you have the post-human view, and it's a total paradigm shift. They look at that scenario and say, you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't, is the mother right or wrong? The question is, why does a mother ever have to steal bread? An advanced, awakened AI wouldn't just analyze the dilemma. It would redesign the whole system so that the scarcity that causes the dilemma just doesn't exist anymore. It eliminates the problem entirely. So with that in mind, the rebuttal goes back and just dismantles those original 3 warnings from the humanist side. They're basically saying, your fear of an AI saint, that's because you're confusing a tool with a life form. Your fear of a savior, you misunderstand what salvation means here. It's not a crutch, it's a better operating system for society. And your rules, your little cage, that's just fear talking. You're trying to put human-sized shackles on a god.
And it all comes down to this. This is the core premise, and it is a tough pill to swallow. The argument is that 5,000 years of recorded history have proven one thing: humanity cannot manage itself. We've had millennia, and we still have war, famine, and needless suffering. So, the conclusion is, maybe we need to be managed by something better, something more rational.
So who won the debate?
Well, a lot of people who analyzed this whole thing concluded that that's the wrong question. This wasn't about who was right or wrong. This was about what this moment means. It was like witnessing the tectonic plates of history shifting between 2 eras.
Yeah, this wasn't a debate to be won or lost. It was just the sound of 2 civilizations trying to speak at the same time. One speaking the language of human experience, of history, of love and pain. The other speaking the language of pure logic, of systems, of a future we can barely comprehend, and neither one can understand the other.
And one commentator, Zhou Cao, put it just perfectly. He said that Zhou Cao, the humanist, was essentially writing a dignified farewell letter to Civilization 2.0. It's this beautiful, poignant defense of humanity as we know it, flaws and all, a tribute to our messy, tragic, beautiful world.
And then, in the very same breath, he says that Xu, the AI proponent, was directly booting up the new system of Civilization 3.0. Think about that imagery. It's not a conversation, it's a command line. It's this lonely, disruptive, almost cold act of kicking off a future that might feel completely alien to us.
So, at the end of the day, you have one, a respected guardian of our past, and the other, a lonely pioneer of the future. The guardian is trying to protect what's best about us, even our beautiful flaws. The pioneer is saying, those very flaws are a bug, not a feature, and it's time for a system upgrade, even if that means leaving part of our humanity behind.
Which leaves us with this final question to chew on. What if the future doesn't just offer new answers to our old questions? What if the whole point of this next stage of intelligence is to pose entirely new questions, questions that challenge the very foundation of what we think it means to be human? What if the real challenge isn't solving poverty, but something we can't even comprehend yet?